Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Spencer, who is initially going to be coming to the game as part of a battle pass. He should be released in other parts of the game too. Scopely will announce how that's going to occur, but he should be in the battle pass initially, be it like Lily Corn where he's at level 50, one for free and one for people who pick up the battle pass. Like I said, we'll have to find out once that information is released. Now, we have had a Spencer in the game before, and visually this character does look like kind of cool. If you look at the weapon and stuff like that, he has got an attached weapon. Nice looking weapon. He's got a sawn-off shotgun on his backpack. He's ready. He is definitely geared up. On the left-hand side, it looks like he's just been, shot, if I'm honest. It looks like he's in pain. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe someone else knows the kind of background story on Spencer. Maybe this is his end. I don't even know. If we look at his stats, at level 1,440, limit break 3, he has got 13,166 attack, 36,865 defense, and 37,743 HP. He is going to be a tough character holding that rifle. He is going to be a tank role, and this is quite important because if he's in a team with Regina, she gets bonuses if there are tanks in his team, and Spencer gets bonuses from Regina's kit, so it's actually quite nice synergy there. Then he's going to be, of course, be a Gold Mythic, and he's going to be joining the Alexandria Allegiance. Now, first off, we're going to be looking at Spencer's Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Shred Away. It has got a recharge rate of 55 AP, deal 35% of this fighter's defense as damage to an enemy. If this fighter has less than 60% of their max HP, damage that line instead. This fighter and one teammate recover from all negative status effects. So obviously this is quite nice. If you look at his specialist skill, his defense rating should be pretty high, so he will be doing quite reasonable damage with this when it comes to the damage output based on his own defense. If his HP, his max HP, is lower than 60%, it then does a line attack. Now it probably will have to be lower than 35 or 34%, because he does potentially get healed for 25% every turn, and that will come in before this rush is going to occur. I think that will even stack up, so eventually it will only be a single target, but if it gets to that point, that defense team has really been a problem. It basically lasted like 15 turns, so that's not good. But yeah, it can potentially go up to a line. This could potentially work on attack. There's nothing on here that says that it has to be on a defense team. Will it work? I don't know. There are some HP-based characters that do damage based on their own HP that work on attack, so maybe Spencer could work on attack as well. But as it stands, he'll be fine for defense. It's going to be decent damage, single target or a line. The nice cleanse as well at the end. Himself is a guarantee, and then the teammate is just completely RNG. But it is all negative status effects. This includes everything, obviously. Normalize, any debilitating status effect, also things like infection, which can be very brutal. Like 200% infection generally is quite hard to get around, but Spencer's going to make it nice and easy. Okay, so here we are on the attack team. Because I can utilize it on attack, it's just easier for me to show you on attack. We are going to do the Adrenaline Rush. He is not below 60% of his max HP, so it will only do it to a single target. But when you are attacking him on a defense team, the Adrenaline Rush doesn't come early on in the fight. Generally turn 2 or turn 3, he should potentially be at lower HP. And if he's obviously been revived by something, for instance, any halos that are low percentage, like these ones on the defense team, he won't be over 60% and it'll be fine. You can see he has got a defense buff, and this is because of his specialist skill, so he will do slightly more damage. And it'll be, I think, 35% of his max defense, which is probably going to be somewhere around like 40k right now. So nothing too crazy on an attack team. It won't do crazy damage, but it's just to show you how it works. It will do 35k damage in this case. If he's obviously behind a defense leader that gives him a defense bonus and everything, then it's going to be much nicer. That does actually mean he's at 100k defense right now. That is actually kind of crazy thinking about it, because he did 35,000 damage. Against an attack team character, that's going to be really good. Against a defense team character, not so much. So that's why my viability on attack is probably going away, but that's not what he's there for. He's definitely here for defense, and against attack team characters, it should be absolutely fine. So that is quite interesting that he was getting 100,000 defense rating on the first turn with no defense leader and a non-upgraded attached weapon. So his defense is going to be very good regardless. Obviously mods can improve that as well, and you could get more damage, or you could try and balance things out and go for more HP, because 100,000 defense without doing much at all is very nice indeed, like I say. If we check out the upgrades, you can see at grade 2 it gets +1 to recovery target. So initially it's just going to be a self cleanse, but then it will cleanse someone else, which is obviously going to be very nice. Just some little kind of teammate synergy is always nice. The AP cost gets reduced to 55, so initially it's going to be 66, but this is at grade 4, so it's just going to be 1 copy. Very nice and easy to come by. At limit break 1 at 3 copies, it will get plus 15% damage. So initially it's going to be 20% of this fighter's defense as damage, and then it'll get boosted up to 35% of this fighter's defense as damage. I'd say that's reasonably important. His defense can get so high just from what we saw, but obviously the higher grade he is, the more stats he's going to have, which is going to be higher defense as well. So it all works together that way, and obviously on a defense team, the higher the grade is, the better it is, generally speaking. At limit break 3, you get an upgrade where if this fighter has less than 60% of their max HP, damage that line instead. Now, I couldn't really show you that, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If he has less than 60% of his max HP, when he does his adrenaline rush, instead of hitting a single target, he will hit a line of enemies, and he'll hit it for 35% of his max defense, which is pretty high by the looks of things. At least 35,000 damage that's seemingly going to do off of turn 1 with no real buffs, because he had a self buff of 40% defense, but that's a self buff that works from his specialist skill, so that's pretty much always going to be there. If you had him in a team with Regina and like one other alert character, they have like a alert buffs weapons in terms of giving defense, could potentially guarantee Spencer's always going to have a defense rating buff regardless. And I will say he has ways of pushing people to attack him, i.e. taunting them, so he should be able to get that Indomitable proc a couple of times before this adrenaline rush goes off. So the damage should be massively amplified, because obviously the higher his Indomitable procs are, the highest defenses. It's pretty much as simple as that. So yeah, this adrenaline rush is nice. It's going to be pretty brutal when it goes off. You've got to be very careful with Spencer. You either have to like kind of leave him alone and control him, or you have to nuke him, because if you leave him in that limbo mode where he's not controlled and like in the 30-40% range of his HP, he could potentially take out a line of enemies. You're looking at the same kind of thing that someone like Sebastian Milton does when he adrenaline rushes, and that is absolutely brutal. Now, as I mentioned the taunts before, let's check out the signature move. It is called Focal Point. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 1 turn, number of uses unlimited, taunt a line of enemies for 1 turn, but +1 duration while on the defense team. Those enemies get -15% attack, but extra -15% attack for each other tough teammate for 2 turns. This fighter gets 100% defense for 2 turns. So let's break it down. The taunt is obviously decent. He's going to taunt characters to attack him to make his specialist skill proc. That's obviously very nice indeed. And then it will be +1 duration if he's on the defense team. He's going to be on the defense team the majority of the time. Those enemies getting -15% attack is just to reduce the incoming damage that Spencer's going to take. Now, I'm not sure if he counts as the tough teammate, so I'm not sure if it'll be 15% or 30%. We'll test that out in a second. But it would last for 2 turns on the attack down, so both turns of those taunts. And even if someone did manage to not have the taunt affect them, whether they resisted it or they had focus, they still have the attack down, so part of their obviously damage output would be nullified. This fighter getting 100% defense for 2 turns is going to help again with the taunted attacks. He's going to take reduced damage, but it will work in line with his adrenaline rush, and it works for 2 turns. So when his adrenaline rush comes around in the next turn or the turn after, he should still have this buff, and obviously he's going to have massively amplified damage because of that, because it's based on his defense rating and it does count. And this multiplies with his Indomitable. They stack together because they are from different sources. So his defense rating could get through the roof very quickly in a fight, especially after those taunted attacks. And we will test that out on a defense team. I'll put him on a defense team just to see by himself, just to see what the kind of like scenario is with his defense rating boost. Okay, so here we are attacking, and I have done some attacks onto Spencer already. This is just to get his defense rating nice and high here, just to show you how it works when it comes with Indomitable plus his signature move. If I do another attack, it should proc his defense rating again, and it should go up to, I'm actually not sure what it went up to, but as you can see with the extra 100% buff, it went up to 1,400, and I think it's just gone up again. So now it's up to 4,000% defense. Now when he does his adrenaline rush, we'll see what kind of damage it's going to do. I don't think I'm going to be able to get him to lower than 60% of his max HP, but we might because of the bleed we've got on him. We'll see. But now he's at 7,999 defense. You can see it scales up really quickly if you attack him. And those taunt attacks are guaranteed, and it stacks with his Indomitable. I'm just going to do another attack again, and he's going to get 11,000. He's going to do his Adrenaline Rush, and he did 187,000 damage. Obviously, that is massively problematic. You can see it obviously scaled down again. It went from 11,000, but now it's down to 2,000. My damage output won't even be that high when I do damage, you know? Not that much damage is going to come out from my characters. That's a 337 damage crit. But yeah, that's how basically his specialist skill works in conjunction with that buff that he's going to get from his signature move. They might not have noticed, but he didn't count as another tough teammate. It was minus 15% attack down on those enemies that did get taunted, but for every other tough teammate, it would get scaled up by a further 15%. This is obviously just quite nice. It's not actually 100% required, but if you did use extra tough teammates on the team with Spencer, you just get extra buffs, which wouldn't be a terrible thing. For instance, you could use someone like Peacekeeper on his team and have Regina as the leader, and that way you've got the tank bonus for Regina from Peacekeeper, and then the bonus for the fact that he's tough for Spencer's signature move. So that could actually be quite nice and how it works. And now, when it comes to the defense buff, you saw it get crazy high. You do not want to target this guy with basic attacks to like charge up your AP. Otherwise, he's going to have such massively scaled defense rating, it's going to be crazy. This can be very problematic for just doing any targeted damage. It's going to be hard when Regina's the leader anyway, because he's going to have further reduced damage. He will not absolute defend this stuff, because with a defense rating, you'll always do damage. It will just be reduced down to like minuscule numbers. And you saw the numbers that we were seeing there. 337 damage crit on a signature move from Titan, so it was actually kind of hilarious, whereas that would do generally a couple of thousand if he didn't have such crazy defense. So yeah, the taunts obviously just okay. He's gonna get his AP boosted reasonably quickly. He has got a 55 AP cost rush, so he should get his rush a bit quicker, and the fact that he's gonna have that massive defense rating, you saw it can do crazy high damage. Now, could you cheese that on an attack team? Maybe. If we look at the upgrades, you can see at grade 3 it gets plus 50% defense. So initially it's going to be a 50% defense buff, and it's going to be boosted up to 100% defense. At grade 5 it gets -1 to starting cooldown. It's so nice to see the -1 to starting cooldown not always be at LB3. It genuinely is nice. Very nice indeed. But that makes the starting cooldown go from a turn 2 starting cooldown down to a turn 1 starting cooldown. So that's very, very important for sure. Then at Limit Break 2 it gets an upgrade where those enemies get -15% attack and -15% for each other tough teammate for 2 turns. I wouldn't necessarily say the Limit Break 2 is that important, so you could try and work out how many copies you would require this character if you had limited pools to actually use him on an attack team. Maybe like Limit Break 1 based on his passives, we'll have to find out. But on a defense team, Limit Break 3 is the way to go. You want to give him as much stats as possible. He requires it. If you want to get the best out of him on attack 2, obviously you'd want to use the most copies of him as possible, just because his defense rating will be higher that way, and everything scales off of the base stat. So if his base stat is 25k and his base stat is 35k, you're generally going to have like a 30% difference on the end amount of defense he's going to have, because that's, you know, 30% extra pretty much on his overall stats. So just think about it that way. Now, checking out Spencer's mythic abilities, these are his passive skills. Of course, he has got strength because he is a tank, where he'll get 40% critical hit resistance. The next one is called neck injury. When a teammate is revived, that teammate gets 100% decat resistance for 2 turns. This is huge. The synergy potential with Spencer and some characters out there, someone like Carl 2K, who consistently revives characters, could be really, really devastating. Decat resistance is massive, and a lot of the specialists that have come out with that are very problematic, and he's effectively giving that to anyone after they're revived. They have to be able to get picked up in the first place, so they can't have been decapped first, but as long as they get picked up, they will have decat resistance for 2 turns after that, unless it obviously gets stolen away. It'll be a speech bubble buff, but still, that is very, very nice indeed. The next one is called Tough Bonding. All tough teammates get 15% HP and 15% defense. this fighter gets 100% defense down resistance. Very, very nice indeed. The actual boost for tough teammates makes it even more worthwhile to actually have tough teammates on Spencer's team. He'll get the little boost from his signature move on them, but they will get a massive boost of stats here. We have had a character in the game that had stat boosts, and I think it was Andre. He did a massive boost in HP, and that worked quite nicely for tough characters, but the boost of defense and HP will probably be a better way to go. Overall stats is obviously nicer, and these will multiply with any leader skills, weapons, and any kind of buffs that you have come onto the character throughout the fight. So very, very nice indeed as well. The defense down resistance is just nice. You can obviously bypass this with someone who has control roll, but then it would only be reduced down to 60%. It is not a resist you would generally go on combat mods, so this is just a nice little bonus. The last one is called You Instead. When an enemy dies, revive a teammate with 80% of their max HP. Suddenly, Spencer becomes Carl 2K. It's a bit different though. It's based on you taking down enemies rather than teammates being taken down. But there are quite a few teams out there that people build on purpose to actually do this throughout the fight. So for instance, you have Zachary on teams as a safety net, and people are happy to lose their characters because they know they're going to be picked up. But if that happens, Spencer's going to revive characters, but when they get revived, they will have 100% decap resistance for 2 turns. This is also going to counter the potential of people using Cesar Martinez against a Regina team if you use Spencer in that team, because he will take himself out and then that will proc You Instead, and then it'll potentially revive a character. You could potentially use Martinez off of turn 1, but any other usages past that, if characters are down, they're not decapped already, they'll be revived with 80% of max HP and 100% decap resistance. Spencer's passives here are brutal. The rest of his kit so far has just been kind of nice synergy, but this is just a completely different character suddenly, and we already know how this works based on how Carl 2K works. However, it's just been switched up on who has to be taken down for a teammate to be revived. Now, before I move on to the next clip to show how his passives work, this is the passive boost that he's going to get with his 15% defense and his 15% HP. You can see he's got 36,865 defense and 37,743 HP. If I just hit the X and it shows with the buffs, you can see it has 42,394 defense and 43,404 HP. This will multiply with his weapon and any buffs that he's going to get in line. This is why he had 100,000 defense very quickly, because his weapon gives a defense bonus too, and they multiply together as well as additional. So it's like going to be 15% extra plus, let's say, 40% extra, but also 15% or 40% added on top. If you make it happen 3 times with a leader skill as well, the scaling can get kind of crazy. And just to show you that in action, with a leader that gives 40% HP and 40% defense, with Spencer's base kit with no mods, he has 85,000 HP and 106,000 defense. This is obviously going to get boosted more when he goes into the fight, because he'll get an extra 40% defense because of his Indomitable proccing straight away, and every other proc afterwards would actually increase his defense further. He's going to be an absolute monster when it comes to his stats on defense for sure. Okay, so here we are just going to be showing you how it's going to work with regards to the pick up the characters, and then obviously they have decap resistance and so on and so forth. I've got some characters that should get taken out quite quickly. If I hit the defend action here, we have had some teammates taken out. This is terrible. Now, if I was to take out an enemy, one of my teammates should get revived. I'll do the attack here. You'll see the character will get revived, and now they have 100% decap resistance. They are also at 80% of their max HP. If we take out another character, this should be the same sort of deal with the remaining character that was already down. It doesn't matter who the character is that takes down the enemy. One of my teammates will get revived, and they'll have 100% decap resistance for 2 turns, and they'll be able to take their turn too. So if they have their signature move ready, they can just do their signature move like absolutely straight away. On a defense team, this is very, very powerful indeed. If we jump straight into the upgrades, you can see at grade 1, he gets the first half of neck injury. When a teammate is revived, that teammate gets 50% decap resistance for 2 turns. At grade 2, he gets the first half of strength, getting 20% critical hit resistance. At grade 3, he gets the second half of neck injury, When a teammate is revived, that teammate gets 50% further decat resistance for 2 turns, making it 100% total. If we move on to grades 4 and 5, you can see at grade 4 he gets the first half of tough bonding. All tough teammates get plus 7.5% HP and defense. This fighter gets 100% defense down resistance. He is a tough teammate, so he will get that buff. At grade 5, he gets the first half of you instead. When an enemy is taken out, revive a teammate with 40% of their max HP. So at grade 5, this character is already doing everything that they possibly can do in Spencer's kit when it comes to his passives. They're just doing it to a weaker level. However, when we move on to limit breaks, they'll just get boosted up a bit more. Well, limit break 1, we have 20% critical hit resistance coming in, strength 2, making it 40% total. And limit break 2, tough bonding 2 comes in, where it'll be a further 7.5% HP and 7.5% defense for those tough teammates, making it 15% each. This fighter will still only get 100% defense down resistance. That's obviously the highest resistance you can get. At limit break 3, you'll get the second half of you instead, making it when that character is revived, when an enemy is taken out, the teammate will have 80% of their max HP instead. Very nice passives, have completely changed how Spencer is going to work as a character. He was looking a certain way with his main kit. It was looking like a kind of new age version of Sebastian Milton, but now he looks like a kind of meld of Sebastian Milton, Andre, and Carl 2K, and taking all the best parts from those characters by the looks of things. Should synergize very nicely with Regina. So yeah, like I say, very nice passives, work great for Spencer and his kit. Now the last thing to look at and to see how that Adrenaline Rush and Signature Move come together is going to be the Specialist skill. His passives don't really work with his Specialist skill. They are kind of like separate to how it works. It's almost like his Adrenaline Rush, Signature Move and Specialist skill are one part of his kit, and his passives are completely another branch of his kit. It's kind of interesting. But he's got Indomitable too. While not stunned, whenever this fighter takes damage, they gain 40% defense, in addition to any existing defense increases, included private activations of this skill. This is why he got up to like, what was it, 11,000 defense. Resets at the end of 2 turns. At the start of combat, they gain a 40% defense buff for the first 2 turns. And this is quite interesting too, because obviously he just instantly gets defense buff. This is just going to be a nice little boost, but it will stack with that signature move. So even if he doesn't get attacked, he'll have 40% plus 100% plus 40% of 100%. So he should be about 180% defense buff off of turn 1, or like on your attack's turn 2, even if no one's attacked him. And then those taunted attacks will come in and proc his Indomitable twice and so on and so forth, and then it gets kind of out of hand. So that's how his specialist skill works. Pretty straightforward, but it works nicely with the combination with his signature move and his Adrenaline Rush. Now we saw at the start, Spencer has got an attached weapon, and it is Spencer's guarded modded rifle. It has got 40% HP, 40% defense, camo cover. When being attacked, 50% chance this fighter and all adjacent teammates get camouflage for 2 turns. And then lastly, it has improved defense up to the line. All teammates in a line get 20% defense. This is an interesting weapon. The stats are great, obviously. 40-40 is perfect. Camo cover is interesting. It will have a 50% proc rate. This will happen with his taunted attacks that he's going to receive, and any obviously basic attacks or multi-hit basic rushes, like attack-based rushes that he's going to have as well. They're not generally going to be good to use against Spence if he's in a Regina team anyway, but he will have the proc chance of camouflage. This will stop AoE nukes, potentially, which is obviously good. And an improved defense upline. This is why he was getting such high defense rating on like the stat screen that I showed before, and in the fight. He already gets a plus 20% defense rating, and that multiplies with the 40% from the weapon that you see here, plus the 15% that you see in his passives, and they will multiply together. On top of that, it would multiply with the 40% from Regina's lead. So yeah, the defense can scale just crazily high. Off base, 106,000 in that team. If you obviously increase his defense a bit more, it's going to go obviously a little bit higher as well. Now you can probably see this weapon and say, hey, isn't he a massive window? To a certain extent, yes. But like I showed, if you just straight up basic attack this guy to try and gain AP, he's going to be sitting there after 1 or 2 turns with thousands and thousands of defense. And obviously his Adrenaline Rush is going to be massively boosted because of that. And not many characters are going to be able to survive that, unfortunately, for the attack team. So I don't think you should, generally speaking, attack this character if you can help it with attack-based, you know, characters that gain AP without hitting someone maybe, but otherwise you're going to just be proccing his specialist skill, giving him massive amounts of defense, and that is a big problem indeed. Interesting weapon. You can of course swap it out if you don't like it, but it is definitely a decent weapon to think about and to upgrade and just to have as an option going forward. So that is Gold Mythic Spencer, and he is going to be coming to the game, like I said, as part of a battle pass and elsewhere, but Scopely will be announcing how that's going to be made available. I think this character is very nice and should have very good synergy with Regina. Don't forget, Regina does have one of her skills where she just heals Spencer for 25% max HP for the rest of combat, and then every time she does that skill, it will add another 25% HP. So Spencer will just be non-stop healing up potentially with Regina, plus have thousands of defense in certain scenarios. So yeah, very hard character to take down, generally speaking, even with deal damage, which was a little bit of a susceptibility to teams that Regina's going to be on, and the revives and decat resistance and stuff like that's going to come in. I can see him being a big problem indeed. Do tell me your thoughts on Gold Mythic Spencer as a character coming to the game, and also the fact that obviously Regina and Spencer are part of the same family in The Walking Dead. What does that mean? Who could come next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.